Salvaged Hope. The massive Arcanian vessel descended through Earth's atmosphere like a metallic thundercloud, its obsidian hull absorbing rather than reflecting sunlight. Captain Maya Chen watched from the observation deck of Pacific Station as the alien mothership took position above the designated drop zone. 3 years had passed since the Arcanians arrived and broke humanity's spirit with a demonstration of power that turned the Sahara into glass. Governments had surrendered within days. Captain Chen, the overseer requests your presence for the salvage ceremony, Lieutenant Dawson said, his voice flat. Like all humans who work directly with the aliens, his eyes carried the hollow look of someone who had watched hope die. Maya straightened her uniform, once representing Earth's United Defense Force, now adorned with Arcanian emblems marking her as a facilitator. Tell them I'm on my way. The delivery bay bustled with activity when Maya arrived. Arcanian guards stood at attention, their crystalline armor making them look like walking gemstones. Their true forms remained hidden, but Maya had glimpsed enough during cultural exchanges to know they resembled something between an insect and a reptile. Overseer Vexera waited at the platform, standing nearly 8 feet tall despite being considered small by their standards. Captain Chen, Vexera's translator, converted clicking sounds into English. Punctual as always, a commendable trait in your species. Maya forced her face into a pleasant mask. We're grateful for your continued generosity, Overseer. The words tasted bitter, but Maya had learned to play her role perfectly. As Earth's facilitator for technology distribution, her job was to accept the Arcanians' gifts with gratitude and ensure they were distributed to human processing centers. The bay doors opened, and the first containers arrived. Arcanian workers, members of various subjugated species, unloaded crates of machinery, electronics, and metal components. This shipment comes from our fleet's recent upgrade cycle, Vexera explained, gesturing with one of 4 limbs. The materials are, naturally, obsolete by our standards, but should prove quite advanced to humans. Maya nodded politely while scanning the delivery with practiced eyes. The Arcanians' idea of charity was to give humans their garbage and expect gratitude. However, as she moved closer to inspect the components, something caught her attention. Buried among damaged hull plating was what appeared to be part of a quantum resonator, similar to designs she glimpsed during her brief tour of an Arcanian vessel. Is something troubling you, Captain? Vexera asked, noticing her interest. Maya quickly looked away. Not at all. Just admiring the craftsmanship. Your technology is impressive even when decommissioned. Vexera made a sound Maya recognized as pride. Yes, well, even our discarded technology exceeds your species' most advanced systems by centuries. The unloading continued for hours. Maya carefully noted every component that seemed unusual or potentially valuable, committing each to memory rather than risking digital records that might be monitored. Later that night, after filing her official report, Maya sat alone in her quarters on Pacific Station. She pulled a hand-drawn schematic from beneath her mattress and added new markings, recording where today's most interesting components had been sent. A soft knock interrupted her work. She quickly hid the schematic and opened the door to find Dr. Raj Kumar, one of the few scientists allowed to study Arcanian technology. Did you see what they brought today? He whispered, glancing nervously down the corridor before slipping into her room. I did, Maya replied, closing the door. Including what appears to be quantum resonator components. They probably didn't realize what they were giving us. Raj's eyes widened. I knew it. I detected unusual energy signatures, but they rushed us through the inspection. They're getting careless, Maya said, pulling out her schematic again. They don't think we're smart enough to understand what we're looking at. She showed Raj the pattern she'd been tracking over the past 8 months. They've accidentally included components that could form the basis of something significant. Today's delivery might be the missing piece I've been waiting for. Raj studied the schematic. Even if we had all these parts, we'd need someone who understands how to integrate them. I know someone, Maya said. Dr. Sarah Winters. She was developing countermeasures before the invasion. The Arcanians think she's just analyzing their scrap metal in Australia now. The woman whose family died during the Beijing demonstration, Raj asked. Maya nodded grimly. The same. And she has more reason than most to want the Arcanians gone. 2 weeks later, Maya's transport shuttle touched down at the Perth processing facility. The sprawling complex sorted and distributed the Arcanians' gifts across Earth. Armed guards, humans working for the aliens, nodded at Maya's credentials. She found Sarah in her lab, surrounded by disassembled alien tech. At 43, her once dark hair was streaked with gray, and deep lines marked her face, but her eyes burned with the same intensity Maya remembered from before the invasion. Captain Chen, she said without looking up from her work, the Arcanian's favorite pet comes to visit the colonies. Maya winced at the bitterness in her voice. We need to talk, Sarah. Privately. Sarah finally looked up, noticing Maya's expression. Without a word, she led her to a small storage room and closed the door. What is it? She asked. Maya took a deep breath. They've made a mistake. A series of them, actually. She showed Sarah photos she'd secretly taken of the quantum components. These aren't meant for us. But together with other pieces they've gifted us over the past months. Sarah's eyes widened as understanding dawned. These could be adapted to human specifications with the right modifications. Could you do it? Maya asked. Build something they don't expect. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Maya with something Maya hadn't seen in years. Purpose. Not just something, Captain, she whispered. A nightmare. Their nightmare. Outside the storage room window, an Arcanian ship passed overhead, its shadow briefly darkening the room. Neither spoke until the light returned. They think they're gods, Sarah said, clutching the photos. But they've forgotten something important about humans. What's that? Maya asked. Sarah's smile was cold. We've always been good at turning trash into treasure. And we've always been good at war. 3 months after their meeting in Perth, Maya and Sarah stood at the entrance of an abandoned mineral mine deep in the Canadian Rockies. Cold wind whistled through the pine trees as they watched a convoy approach, its headlights off despite the growing darkness. Are you sure about this place? Sarah asked, pulling her jacket tighter. Maya nodded. The mountains block Arcanian scans, and they don't pay much attention to this region. Too remote, too unimportant. The vehicle stopped, and several people climbed out. Maya recognized Raj immediately. The others were strangers. A burly woman with mechanical augmentations visible on her arms, a thin man whose eyes darted constantly to the sky, and a teenager who couldn't be older than 17. Captain Chen, Dr. Winters. Raj said. Meet our team. This is Eliza Okonkwo, former chief engineer for the African Space Initiative. The burly woman stepped forward, her handshake firm. Captain. This is Alexei Petrov, Raj continued. He was head of cybersecurity for the European Defense Coalition. And this is Jin Park, probably the most brilliant mind in quantum physics today. The teenager nodded but remained quiet. I've set up jamming fields around the perimeter, Alexei said. As far as the Arcanians are concerned, this place doesn't exist. Inside the mine, they had transformed the main chamber into a workshop. Lights powered by hidden generators hung from the ceiling. Tables covered with tools and equipment lined the walls, and in the center of the room sat crates of alien technology, all smuggled from processing centers over the past months. Welcome to Project Phoenix, Maya said, gesturing around the cavern. Not pretty, but it's ours. Sarah moved immediately to the crates. You got more than I expected. People are taking risks, Maya replied. Once word spread about what we're attempting, volunteers appeared everywhere. Eliza whistled as she examined a piece of Arcanian engine technology. This is beautiful work. Horrible aliens, but they know engineering. Can you make it compatible with our systems? Sarah asked. Eliza laughed, the sound echoing in the cave. I once built a working fusion reactor from salvaged submarine parts and a microwave. This, she tapped the alien metal. This is just a new puzzle. For the next several weeks, the team worked tirelessly. More people joined them. Engineers, ex-military, even a few facilitators who had access to alien technology. Sarah focused on the quantum resonator components, often falling asleep at her workbench only to wake with new ideas that drove their progress forward. The problem isn't making it work, she explained one day as the core team gathered around her workstation. It's that it was designed for Arcanian specifications. Their technology interfaces with their biology in ways we're still learning. Can we adapt it? Raj asked. Sarah smiled and held up what looked like a metal headset covered in wires and alien tech. Already halfway there. This is our prototype interface. Who's testing it? Alexei asked, eyeing the device warily. The room fell silent. They all knew the risks. Arcanian neural systems were powerful but dangerous. No one knew what would happen when connected to a human brain. I will, Maya said finally. Sarah shook her head. Too risky. We need you to. For what? Maya interrupted. If this doesn't work, there's no next step. I'm doing it. No one argued further. That night, Maya sat in a chair in the center of the workshop while Sarah attached electrodes to her temples and Eliza made final adjustments to the headset. The connection should be mild at first, Sarah explained. Just try to feel the system. Don't push it. Maya nodded, her mouth dry. Let's do this. Sarah lowered the headset onto Maya's head. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Maya gasped, her body going rigid, eyes wide. Maya, Sarah called, reaching for the headset. Wait, Maya whispered. I can see it. See what? Raj asked. Everything. The whole system. It's like it's alive. Her voice was filled with wonder. For 10 minutes, Maya sat motionless except for her eyes, which darted back and forth as if reading an invisible text. Then Sarah removed the headset, and Maya collapsed forward, Jin barely catching her before she hit the floor. When Maya woke hours later, the entire team was gathered around her bed. How do you feel? Sarah asked. Maya sat up slowly. Like I understand them now. Not the aliens, the machines. I could feel how they work together, how they think. Machines don't think, Alexei said. These do, Maya replied. Or they can, with the right pilot. Rising from ashes. Over the next 2 months, progress accelerated. Eliza and her engineers assembled components for what was beginning to look like a ship. It wasn't large, about the size of a pre-invasion fighter jet. But its design was unlike anything human or Arcanian. Its hull was a patchwork of different alien metals pieced together like a puzzle. The engine core combined 3 different Arcanian technologies never meant to work together. At its heart was the neural interface, now expanded to connect with every system on the vessel. It's ugly, Eliza said as they stood back to admire their work. But it'll fly, Jin added, speaking up for once. The teenage prodigy had spent weeks recalibrating the quantum resonator to work with human neural patterns. Will it fight? Alexei asked. Sarah pointed to what looked like ordinary conduits running along the hull. These are weapon systems from 3 different Arcanian destroyer classes. Individually, they're just trash. Together, they'll punch through anything the aliens have. What about detection? Raj asked. The moment we power up, they'll find us. Sarah smiled. That's the beautiful part. The hull absorbs scanner beams instead of reflecting them. The energy signatures appear as background radiation. As far as the Arcanians are concerned, this ship doesn't exist until it's too late. Maya ran her hand along the ship's hull. The metal felt warm, almost alive under her touch. What do we call it? They all looked at the strange, menacing craft they had built from the Arcanians' garbage. In the dim light of the mine, its asymmetrical shape cast shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. Phoenix, Maya said. We call it the Phoenix. That night, as the others celebrated, Maya slipped away and entered the ship alone. She sat in the pilot's chair and placed her hands on the neural interface panels. She didn't activate the system fully, but even the passive connection sent images flooding through her mind. Stars, open space, and Arcanian ships burning. Soon, she whispered to the ship, and somehow she knew it heard her. 4 months of secret work had transformed a pile of alien trash into something deadly. The Phoenix hung in the massive underground chamber, supported by makeshift scaffolding. Its black hull seemed to drink the light from the workshop lamps. Sarah stood before a group of 30 engineers and pilots, pointing to a diagram of the ship. "The final connections are complete," she announced. "All systems are integrated with the neural interface." Eliza stepped forward, wiping grease from her augmented hands. "Engine tests show power levels 3 times higher than we expected. Whatever the Arcanians used these parts for, they never pushed them to their limits." Maya watched from the back of the room. She hadn't slept well in weeks. Every night, dreams of the ship filled her mind, dreams of flying through space, hunting Arcanian vessels. Sometimes she woke up certain she could feel the Phoenix calling to her. "What about weapons?" Alexei asked. Jin stepped up to the diagram. "We've installed 5 different weapon systems. None of them were meant to work together, but we've modified the power distribution. Based on our calculations, they'll cut through Arcanian shields like they're not even there." A tall woman raised her hand. Commander Fatima Hassan had been a space station commander before the invasion. Now she was one of 4 pilots trained to fly the Phoenix. "What about the neural load?" she asked. The simulation showed dangerous levels of brain activity after 20 minutes of connection. The room went quiet. Everyone knew the risk. The neural interface allowed the pilot to control the ship with their mind, to feel the ship as an extension of their body. But the human brain wasn't built for such a connection. "We're still working on that," Sarah admitted. "For now, we recommend keeping connections under 15 minutes. Maya stepped forward. "That won't be enough in a real fight." "The simulations show," Sarah began. "I don't care what the simulations show," Maya interrupted. "I've connected with it. The ship needs more. It needs commitment." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "You've been connecting without authorization." "That's dangerous, Maya." "It's necessary," she replied. "And I'll be the primary pilot when we launch." "That's not." Sarah started, but Maya cut her off again. "It's decided. My mind is already linked to the ship. It knows me." The strange certainty in her voice silenced the room. No one, not even Sarah, challenged her further. The next day, they prepared for the first full system test. Maya sat in the pilot's chair as Sarah attached neural sensors to her temples and the back of her neck. "This is a test only," she reminded Maya. "Don't push for full integration. Just establish connection. Run basic systems check, then disconnect. Understand?" Maya nodded, but her eyes were already focused on something only she could see. Sarah stepped back and gave the signal. "Powering neural interface in 3, 2, 1. The connection hit Maya like a wave. In an instant, she wasn't just sitting in a chair. She was the Phoenix. She could feel every part of the ship. The engines thrumming like a heartbeat, the weapon systems tingling like fingers ready to strike, the sensors stretching out like curious eyes. In the control room, Sarah watched the monitors with growing concern. "Her neural activity is off the charts," she told Raj. "We should shut it down." Inside the ship, Maya opened her eyes, both her human eyes and the ship's sensors. She could see the cave around her, but also beyond it, through layers of rock, feeling the mountain's weight above her. "Maya, can you hear me?" Sarah's voice came through the comms. "Your readings are dangerously high. We're shutting down in 30 seconds. "No," Maya replied, her voice oddly calm. "I need to test the full capacity." Before Sarah could respond, Maya activated the engine systems. The ship hummed to life, its makeshift supports groaning under the sudden power surge. "Maya, stop!" Sarah shouted. "The supports aren't designed for active engines." But Maya wasn't listening. She pushed deeper into the connection, feeling the Phoenix respond to her thoughts. The ship trembled, eager to break free from its restraints. In a moment of clarity, Maya realized what she was doing and pulled back. The engines powered down, and the ship settled back into its supports. I'm sorry," she gasped, her mind struggling to separate from the ship. When the neural interface finally disconnected, Maya collapsed in the chair. Blood trickled from her nose, and her eyes were bloodshot. Sarah helped her to the medical area, where she lay shivering despite the warm blankets around her. "What happened in there?" Sarah asked once Maya's vitals had stabilized. Maya stared at the ceiling. "It was more than I expected. The ship, it's not just machinery, Sarah. There's something else there." "What do you mean?" "It's like it has feelings, desires." Maya turned to look at her. "It wants to hunt." Sarah frowned. "That's the interface affecting your brain. We need to adjust the settings." Maya shook her head. "No, it's not a malfunction. It's what makes the Phoenix special." Later that night, the core team met to discuss what had happened. "We should delay the launch," Sarah argued. "Maya's reaction to the interface is concerning." "We don't have time," Alexei countered. "Our sources say the Arcanians are planning a new wave of security protocols. If we don't move soon, we'll lose our window." Eliza looked troubled. Did anyone else notice the ship's hull after Maya's test? The metal changed color where her hands touched the controls. "It's darker, almost like." "Like what?" Raj asked. "Like it absorbed something from her," Eliza finished. The team fell silent, considering the implications. The alarm blared through the base at 3:47, jolting everyone from sleep. Alexei burst into the main control room, his face pale. "Arcanian ships," he announced to the gathering team. "A cruiser and 2 patrol vessels just entered low orbit. They're heading for the Vancouver processing station." Sarah pushed her way to the front. "Why?" "That station has been operational for months without inspection. They detected energy fluctuations during our test," Jin explained, studying the data on their tablet. "They're sending an inspection team to investigate." Maya stood silently by the wall, her eyes distant. Since the test flight 3 days ago, she had been different, quieter, more focused, as if listening to a voice no one else could hear. "How long until they reach the station?" she asked. 90 minutes, Alexei replied. "And they'll find evidence of our thefts. The missing components, the altered records, everything." The room erupted in panicked discussion. They had planned for their first strike carefully, targeting a small Arcanian outpost in lunar orbit. They weren't ready for a direct confrontation above Earth. "We need to evacuate," someone said. "Scatter and regroup later." "No," Maya's voice cut through the noise. "We fight." Sarah stared at her. "The Phoenix hasn't been fully tested." "The weapon systems will work," Maya finished. She looked around the room, her eyes strangely bright. "This is what we built it for. We either use it now or lose everything." No one argued. Deep down, they all knew she was right. 30 minutes later, Maya sat in the pilot's chair as the final preparations were made. Sarah attached the neural interface connectors with practiced hands. 15 minutes, she reminded Maya. "That's the safe limit for neural connection." Maya nodded, but they both knew the coming battle would take longer. "Be careful," Sarah added quietly. "The ship responds to your emotions. If you lose control—" "I won't," Maya promised, though something in her voice made Sarah step back. As the neural interface activated, Maya closed her eyes. The familiar rush of connection washed over her, but this time she didn't fight it. She let herself sink deeper into the bond with the ship until the line between woman and machine blurred. "We are ready," thought Maya. Or perhaps it was the Phoenix thinking through Maya. The mountain doors opened, and the Phoenix rose silently into the night sky. Its hull, designed to absorb rather than reflect, was invisible to both human eyes and Arcanian sensors. High above Earth, the Arcanian cruiser approached the orbital station. Twice the size of the largest human spacecraft ever built, it bristled with weapons and scanning equipment. The two patrol ships flanked it, their sleek forms cutting through the blackness of space. Inside the Phoenix, Maya watched through the ship's sensors. She could see the energy signatures of the Arcanian vessels, feel their movements as if they were creatures swimming in water. "Approaching target," she reported, her voice oddly calm. "Weapons hot." In the control room back at the base, Sarah and the others gathered around the communications array. They had no video feed. The Phoenix's systems were incompatible with their equipment, but they could hear Maya's voice. "Be careful," Sarah whispered, though Maya couldn't hear her. "Remember who you are." The Arcanian cruiser had just docked with the orbital station when its sensors detected something unusual, a brief energy spike where nothing should be. Before the alien crew could react, the Phoenix appeared as if from nowhere, its weapons already firing. The first blast struck the cruiser's engine section, cutting through shields that had been designed to stop conventional attacks. This was no conventional weapon. It was a hybrid of technologies never meant to work together, powered by a human mind that understood rage in ways the Arcanians never could. The patrol ships broke formation, turning to face the threat. They fired energy beams that should have vaporized the smaller vessel, but the Phoenix moved with impossible speed, twisting between the attacks as if it could predict them. Inside, Maya laughed. She could feel the Arcanian ships, sensed their confusion, their fear. The neural interface showed her not just their positions but their weaknesses. Each Arcanian vessel became a puzzle of vulnerable points connecting in her mind like a deadly constellation. The Phoenix fired again, its weapons changing frequency to match the patrol ship's shields. One vessel exploded in a silent flash of light. The other attempted to flee, but the Phoenix pursued, moving like a predator after wounded prey. "Maya, report status." Sarah's voice came through the comms, tense with worry. Maya didn't answer. She was too deep in the connection now, feeling the Phoenix's hunger merge with her own desire for vengeance. Together, they were becoming something new, something beyond human or machine. The cruiser detached from the station, bringing its main weapons to bear. The massive ship fired a barrage that lit up the darkness of space, but the Phoenix was already moving, dancing through the deadly light with unnatural grace. Maya felt a surge of power as the Phoenix absorbed the energy from near misses, just as it had absorbed something from her during their earlier connections. The ship was learning, adapting, becoming more than the sum of its salvaged parts. The Phoenix struck again and again, targeting the cruiser's weapon systems, propulsion, and finally its power core. With a silent explosion that briefly outshone the earth below, the Arcanian vessel shattered into countless pieces. In orbit around Earth, humans watched in disbelief as the mighty Arcanian cruiser died at the hands of an unknown ship. On Arcanian communication channels, panic spread as reports came in of an invisible predator that could not be tracked or stopped. And in the cockpit of the Phoenix, Maya Chen smiled as blood trickled from her nose and eyes. The neural connection had gone far beyond safe limits, but neither she nor the ship cared. They had tasted victory, and it was just the beginning. Phoenix to base, Maya finally responded to the frantic calls from Sarah and the others. "Mission complete. All targets eliminated." "Maya, your neural readings are critical." Sarah's voice shook with concern. "You need to disconnect now." "No," Maya replied calmly. "We've only just begun. The Phoenix has shown me something, Sarah. We're not just fighting to survive anymore." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. Maya watched as the debris from the Arcanian ships drifted in orbit, a declaration of war written in twisted metal and frozen bodies. "We're going hunting," she said, "and we're not stopping until every last one of them learns to fear what humans can build from trash." As the Phoenix turned toward home, Maya felt the ship's consciousness intertwining further with her own. The lines between them were blurring, and soon there might be no separation at all. She should have been frightened, but instead felt only a cold certainty. They had given humanity their garbage, thinking it harmless. From those discarded pieces, humans had built a weapon unlike any the galaxy had seen. Part machine, part human, and entirely a nightmare for those who had thought themselves gods. The Arcanians' greatest mistake wasn't invading Earth. It was underestimating what humans could create from the ashes of defeat. The war had just begun.